I'm Jack Gerber.
I'm named by Beverly.
I'm Jacob Niven.
I'm Wesley Feldman.
And we're all students in Dr. Conley's PL100 class, section D2.
This is our project.
During our summer training, in talking with the enlisted members of our task force, we noticed that there's a large perceived difference between West Point and ROTC officers. Additionally, many of our classmates who spent time in the ROTC program before coming to West Point, and they have talked about the vast differences between the two styles of training and the officers that they produce. Additionally, in our research, we found that some enlisted soldiers had the following to say about West Point and ROTC officers. West Point officers assume that they know everything, and this hurts them in comparison to their ROTC officers. One soldier said that the most common thing that I've had issues with is that they're difficult to work with. A lot of them assume that they have the best training and know better than everyone else. On the other hand, some ROTC officers believe that they may have something to prove in comparison to their West Point officers, since they come from a prestigious school and now are held to a somewhat higher standard. Another soldier said that he found that the West Point officers were much easier to get along with, while some ROTC guys are mainly, but not always, not nice people, and they seem to have something to prove. However, others see them as the same. All officers are officers no matter what path they choose to become one. Another grad said, by the end of BOLC, there's generally no difference between a West Point officer and an ROTC grad.
At the end of the day, some NCOs don't really care where the junior officers come from. They're usually able to tell within the first month. But these are the questions to ask when you receive that brand new lieutenant. We really don't care how or where you commission from. Do you lead effectively? Do you empower your NCOs? Do you learn and grow from mistakes? And do you seek your PhD's advice? This quote said from an anonymous user on Reddit. Many don't truly have a preference due to the different types of people from both sides. A quote to best represent this, coming from First Sergeant Browncoat, is, I have served with officers from ROTC, USMA, OCS, and other places such as the Citadel. He served for 5 years and a Master Sergeant for First Sergeant for 5 more. He's worked with PLs that are both heroes and zeros from all the above. Another trend we saw while exploring was a breakdown of what type of people came from each, generally following the usual stereotypes behind each of them. It would go as follows. West Point, abrasive and lack social skills, but generally decent at organizing and resourcing. For ROTC, they were usually the more down-to-earth bunch and more adept to delegate NCOs, but they didn't seem to play well with other officers. As far as OCS, they usually didn't meet standards of an officer. And lastly, from my own personal experience, most NCOs that I've talked to during Beast said that they straight up didn't care where they were from, as long as you as an officer care about your soldiers and their well-being. As such, we led to the research question, do non-commissioned officers respect junior West Point officers more than junior ROTC officers?
For our study, we're proposing a history research design for how non-commissioned officers viewed their West Point and ROTC company grade officers. The independent variable is the officer's commissioning source. The dependent variable is the NCO's opinion of officers. The population of interest is junior officers from West Point and ROTC. The sample method is 5 accounts from the 10th Mountain Division, 5 accounts from the 1st Infantry Division, and 5 accounts from the 25th Infantry Division. Our control group is going to be the West Point graduates, and then the experimental group is the ROTC graduates. And our ethical considerations, it may piss off the superintendent, forcing the BTO to enforce weekly SAMIs to kill core morale in support of upholding standards and discipline. Additionally, ROTC grads may drink less, which will make them realize that maybe going to Hogwarts would be better than conducting military training out of a trailer. For a real ethical consideration, the privacy of the officers and the enlisted mentioned has to be preserved.
Based on our experiences in interacting with junior enlisted soldiers in our research, the Army should consider conducting a case study on the following research question. Do non-commissioned officers respect junior West Point officers more than junior ROTC officers? In the future, given the significantly higher cost of training West Point cadets, also known as ring thumpers, versus ROTC cadets, the Army has an interest in determining which program is more effective at creating junior officers so they can efficiently allocate funding and gain congressional support. The quotes we used in our project came from Reddit r/Army.